Hi everybody. I almost said good morning, but it may not be morning where you are, so I will just say hi everybody. Welcome to week 2 of class. This is one of my favorite weeks because I really enjoy social media, even though it's more of a love-hate relationship. I really enjoy it, and this is sort of the first week that we'll talk a little bit about how we use social media and how we can use social media to make our lives more efficient, to network with people, especially going to school in an online environment, working with video, working collaboratively across the World Wide Web is one of the most important facets of your education. So in week 1, we sort of took a look more globally at technology, the fundamentals, when technology really began to pick up steam. And in 1984, I was in high school. And so I've sort of been there for this explosion in technology, and it has just been fascinating to watch, and I'm always excited to think about what the future will bring. In week 2, we really turn our attention a little bit more inward to how technology affects us personally. So there's several things that we're going to do this week. The first is that in your text and in the work that you'll do, it's a little more technical than week 1. Basically, it talks about computer software and hardware in your text. And the key takeaways from that is to always remember that it's not as easy as pressing the buttons on your phone, and that your phone operates extremely differently than a tablet computer, and that operates differently than a laptop, which operates differently from a desktop. So when I think about class, I rarely use my phone for class. There would never be a time when the only thing I would access class on is my phone. I always use a desktop if I can, a laptop if I'm moving around, a tablet if I'm out of a desktop or a laptop, and my phone is sort of a last resort type of access to class. In week 2, the first thing that I'll talk about is your assignment. Your assignment is long. Do not wait till next Monday to start it. It's a little bit about good digital citizenship, and it's actually a lot about digital citizenship, but in several different ways. So in the worksheet for week 2, there are 3 students, Miguel, Margaret, and Irene. Miguel has a problem. He's like us. He's got too many responsibilities and not enough time to get through them. Instead of asking his instructor for an extension or simply turning in his assignment late and taking that 10% late deduction, he chooses instead to do research on the Google, copy it, paste it, and turn it in as his own work. That is called plagiarism, and it is a really serious offense. In fact, it can get you kicked out of the university. So never do that. What you will do is you'll think about ways that Miguel could have not done that, and why he shouldn't have done it in the first place, how he could have managed his time a little bit better, and some other things. I hope you're creative in what he could have done differently to avoid having a potential plagiarism charge lodged against him. The second student is Margaret, and Margaret writes an email to her instructor that is inappropriate. And if you check the announcements, you'll see that I've posted an announcement about email etiquette, and Margaret violates most of the things that you're supposed to do. So what you'll do is you'll identify 3 things, and that should be easy because there's about 20 things wrong with Margaret's email. So you'll identify 3 things, and then you'll rewrite it to make better use of good digital citizenship. And I will say, as a little caveat, one of the things that always surprises me when I teach this class is that a lot of times the rewritten email is not any better than Margaret's. And like I said, it's surprising, but it happens. So I take this sort of as learning lesson number 1 in how you can be a better critical writer, which if you took EXP 105 should not be a new concept to you. And then our third student is Irene, and Irene is just flat out rude. And I'd like to say you'll never encounter anybody like that at Ashford, but you will. And so I apologize in advance for that, but hopefully you can be thinking about how you would respond to someone like Irene. Irene writes a relatively inflammatory response to a student in a public discussion forum. And she says things like, "You're wrong," and she uses lots of capitalizations. And both of those things violate Ashford's etiquette rules and in fact violate general society etiquette rules. So what you'll do again is you'll pick out some things that Irene did not do well and some different ways that Irene could have phrased her response. And a lot of times people start their discussion with, "Dear Mark," who's the student in the scenario, "I disagree with you." That is not any better than what Irene says. So consider different ways you can disagree with somebody without saying, "I disagree with you because you're wrong," because that's what people hear, especially on the internet where you're typing instead of speaking. So you could politely say to me, if we're chatting via video chat, "Well, geez, Carly, I don't really agree with you on that. I disagree." But if you write it on the internet, I may take it more personally than I would if we were chatting. So whenever you're writing something, I always write it and then I read it out loud to sort of see how it sounds. And that's one way that you can kind of gauge whether what you're saying is the meaning behind it, so the emotion behind it. And then we have our discussion for the week. And in this discussion, you're going to talk about how social media can enhance your life. And I do run across some students that don't have any experience with social media at all. And then I have some that have so much experience it makes me look bad. And I've been using social media for more than a decade because I work in academia. And a lot of times social media, that's where social media has started. Facebook started on college campuses. And so I was one of the early adopters of Facebook simply because I work on a college campus and needed to see what the students were doing. But I have friends who have never been on social media, and I'll use an example. I have a friend who is young. She's 30 years younger than me, and she had never been on social media, but her son is going to be 3 here in June. And so she's thinking about where he can go to preschool, and in our town, there's one place he can go to preschool. But she's looking for information on that. And when she asked around, all of her friends said, "Oh, they posted that on the Facebook." And she was so upset because she's not on Facebook. Well, she is now. And she's not on there to be social with anybody or to, talk to friends or find long-lost relatives. She's on there simply to get information about a program that her son can participate in. So there's way more uses for social media than arguing with people and posting pictures of your kids and watching funny cat videos, although that last one is something I enjoy about social media. So what you'll think about is how social media, and I really encourage you to think outside the personal and think about how social media can enhance your professional or your educational ways that you think about using that particular platform. I'll share another example. I got the job at Ashford through social media. I had friended or had been friended by some students of mine that I taught when they were in high school. And so we just sort of reconnected on Facebook, and I had posted that I was teaching for a different university at the time. And she contacted me privately and said, "Hey, would you be interested in Ashford?" And I said, "What's Ashford?" And from there, she told me a little bit about the school, kind of told me and it sounded like something that I would be really interested in. And 10 years later, here I am. So social media is becoming really a great way to connect with potential employers, with things that you didn't you think you're interested in, but you're not sure. YouTube is great for that. I'm hopeful that it'll teach me how to knit this year. That's on my bucket list. So we'll see how I approach that. So with that, that's sort of an introduction to week 2 and kind of the different things that you'll be working on and working with this week. 2 things that aren't really directly connected to class, but that I do want to mention is, one, when I was reading through your introductions in week 1, a lot of people wanted to get out of this class how to use something. So how to use Excel or how to use Microsoft Word. This course is digital literacy, not digital proficiency. So there's a big difference there. If we were talking about digital proficiency, then yes, I'd be teaching you formulas and formatting and pages and all that kind of stuff. But it's not. It's about digital literacy, which is more about information, how you find and validate and use appropriately information, and you're being a good digital citizen. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, if this is your first class or your second class and you took EXP 105, I do want to mention that peer replies. In EXP 105, they need it to be 50 words. In Gen 102, they need to be 75 words. So that is an increase. And I know when I teach EXP 105, lots of people have trouble even meeting the 50-word requirement. So I wanted to mention that. And always use that respond to peers prompt, because that helps you think critically, write critically, and when you're writing in a critically as in not like being critical of someone else, but really thinking about what it is that you're typing. I think that helps you meet those pretty minimal requirements. So with that, have a great week. Don't forget, if you have any questions, there's the Ask Your Instructor forum, and I will see you in our discussion. Have a great day. Bye.